Hey there, guys, gals, fans, and pals. Your buddy JohnMegacycle here, introducing a title that we're familiar with but has had a massive rework over the last years. I mean, this has been a project, really a labor of love, I want to say, and this is something that I'm super excited about, absolutely. I was given an entry key to give a quick look at some of the new changes, you know it, I know it, to Cosmoteer. It is now Cosmoteer, Starship Architect and Commander, and this game has had a massive revamp since we played it years ago. I was playing it off of itch.io, I believe is where I downloaded it, and I was playing it. It was a very straightforward game at the time, and I really felt it had a lot of potential. So when I was reached out and given one of the keys to really get into the game and see where it really progressed and has really evolved, I was super excited. I honestly can't overstate that enough. And there's not a lot of games like that that get me this excited, but this is absolutely one of them. Now, what we're going to do with this first video is I'm going to give you a little bit of an update as to what was happening before with Cosmoteer, with what's going on in the new version of Cosmoteer. Lots of things have changed, like I said. A lot of improvements to the way the game is played. A lot of new content, a lot of new depth has been added, and that's how I'm going to say it. There's much more depth. Before, with earlier versions of Cosmoteer, again, previous, like we played years ago, it was you assemble a ship, you go fight bad guys, you jump from sector to sector, very straightforward, and once you found a design, you kind of just ran with it. This one really argues you to be a little bit more thoughtful in your ship creation process and what you're doing as an architect and commander. So let's go ahead and take a look at what was in the before, and let's take a look at where we're at now. So as I said, I've gone up and loaded up the old version of Cosmoteer, Starship Architect and Commander. Actually, now that I realize it is the same name, unless this one also got updated. But I'm just going to go ahead and load an old game that we have. I had a few saves going on, and I only really kept one game running, so I'm just going to fire it up. And the way in which this game operated is, like I said, you build a ship, and this must be my Canon Delight, or, oh, this was Cubist Nightmare. And the way in which this worked is, this is so terrible, the design. But I kind of want to show you the old and the new. So this is a setup of how the old game operated. You go from sector to sector to sector by using your jump drive. And the way this operates is each sector, or each planet region, whatever you want to call it, had a certain amount of baddies in it with a certain amount of difficulty. You warp to that area, you pick a fight, you kill, remove everyone in that sector, and then you just move on to the next. So it's very systematic, very straightforward. No enemies detected. I was going to see if we could find a quick region. Amateur. Let's go ahead and jump. And I kind of want, like I said, I kind of want to show you the old game so we can get a good taste for the new. And we're going to go ahead and engage. We've got enough FTL drives, no problem. So I'm going to bounce. And that is loud. I apologize for that. So I'm just going to pause the game real quick. The game is already with a couple of baddies. We're going to see if we can fight them off. I actually don't remember the validity of this ship. So maybe this is just going to be straight up garbage. But before I do that, let's just turn that audio slightly, just a little bit down there. That's a bit better there, right? Yeah, right there. That'll do us right there. Good, perfect. Okay, there. Let's just go on there. So we're just going to find a jerk, and we're going to fight. And this version of the game had some tactics to it already. Do we have thrusters on this thing? We do. I put armor behind the thrusters. Let's not worry about how that works. Gonna go ahead and pause. Combat begins, and the cool thing is that we could really slow it down so we can get all the delicious action, right? We're going to annihilate this sad jerk. The Fanged Fighter is one of the entry-level ships, and it's an annihilation fair, right? So that's what I wanted to take right there into consideration. We defeat a target, we get the cash, we can use that cash to build, upgrade, change our ship in any way we want. So let's wait for combat to resolve. There we go. Combat has resolved. We can pause the game. We now just take money. We take cash, and we use that cash to build this any way we want. So that's how the old game operated. It was still a lot of fun to customize your own ship with armaments, different sorts of layouts for personnel, thrusters, shields, everything. This one was a real mess, but this was one of my favorite ships now that we come back to it. I have in my library quite a few other ships, but this is kind of where this gets a little funny, and almost 3.5 mil sitting in the bank. So good stuff. And this was a lot of fun game. This is where we were before. So let's take a step forward and see where we're at with the new stuff. Okay, we've warped back to the new. Let's go ahead and start a new game. And I kind of want to take this piece by piece. There's an actual like career mode, and it's very beautiful. We're going to start off with very basic difficulty, very basic economic, standard on both counts. There are advanced game options. Obviously, I haven't messed with that yet. We start off with a couple of ships to get started with. I believe I chose the Model S. And what I've done is I've really played like the beginning part 2 or 3 times. Rebooted, played for a couple hours, rebooted. So I get a really good familiarity of what's going on. Every ship has engines, crew, power, sometimes a shield, but also weaponry. I like this one because it came with a shield to project a little bit of defense. Depending on which ship we choose, we get some remaining funds after the fact because some ships are more expensive. Let's go ahead and just start a new game. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take, like I said, maybe the first few minutes and show you exactly like how much this game has progressed. So we start off in an area, I'll call it a sector. That might not be the right word, but that's kind of how my brain wraps it up. There's a friendly station, some friendly defensive positions here, some platforms ready to defend this. And I'm just going to scroll out a bunch. So this is like a local area, but I'm just going to keep scrolling out. And this is now what a sector is. So I think I explained pretty well what a sector was before. It's just you warp to a location, boom, 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 boom. You blow up the bad guys. You just get the cash, and then that's it. You just move on, move on, move on, move on. Customizing the ship is all just cash. Here, everything's different. We're going to start the game off by clicking on our ship and hailing the station. Starts up at a communication, and this is all completely different. Before, we didn't have quests or anything. There wasn't trade. There was like nothing really to it. It was still a solid game, but there's been a lot more here. We have different sorts of fugitive bounties that we can select. These are just contracts that we need to go and mess up somebody, and we'll get paid by a certain faction. Oh, did I mention there's a faction system? Super good. There's a lot to cover here. I'm going to try to do this quick, though. There's also deliveries and exploration, different qualities and kinds of missions, different difficulties. The number indicates the difficulty of a mission based on, I guess, the difficulty of the mission. Just what kind of danger is there, what kind of enemies we're going to find, and everything's broken down really, really solidly. Also hiring personnel. Before in the old game, it was just click button to hire all crew. Right now, in this case, I believe every single person is the same. We don't have different qualities. Crew is crew is crew, but this adds a bit more of a quality to that portion of the game. There's also trading. When we blow up an enemy vessel, we'll need to salvage the ship, and what we'll get are very primal parts. Steel, coils, maybe some ammunition, different commodities depending on how much of the ship we blew up. And then at the very end, purchasing blueprints. Now, this is something I wanted to really pay attention to. In the old game, I'm just going to pause game speed. Boop, right there. In the old game, there was no such thing as blueprints. You had access to everything, and the only real blocker to upgrading your ship was money, was the capital, right? So in the first sector, you go blow up 2, 3, 4 ships, whatever, with your initial build. Then you can start customizing. Here, money is actually not just for building the parts, but it's also for researching the parts. So we have to unlock a piece before we can use it, which allows us to ramp up slowly, more methodically, a little more tactically, in my opinion. We're going to see a lot of the common parts that we saw before. Standard cannons, missile launchers, railguns. I don't remember. I think flak battery was also in the old one. Also some shields. We got hyperdrives, a few extra parts to a ship. But a lot of this is going to seem very familiar if you've played the game before. Also, there's the factories to produce the ammunition. And in addition to that, there's also smelteries. So, as we do our journey, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, we'll be able to get raw materials, sulfur, and iron, copper, uranium. And then we'll be able to take those commodities, either sell them directly to the station, or we can turn them into something a little more tangible and usable for the ship. So, that breaks down a lot of that. There's also a mining laser, which allows us to better interact with asteroids if we want to mine them for resources. I think this is actually used as a short-range weapon as well. Yep, absolutely. Tractor beam, sensor ray, explosive charge. So there are some new things. But this is how we'll mostly interact with a lot of the objects here in the game. So I'm just going to grab a fugitive bounty. A fugitive bite class vessel is wanted for illegal activities within the new Calipo system. Authorities from the Fringe Systems Resistance have posted a bounty of 2,500 credits to be paid to any Cosmoteer that can eliminate it. Eliminate bite. Rewards. This is a cash reward. This is a fame reward, or credits. Yeah, credit reward, a fame reward, and also a reputation with a faction. Location, very simple. We're going to go ahead and accept it. Now, this is all very straightforward. All the missions are tracked on the left. All the ship controls in the bottom left here, down here. If you're familiar with the game, I shouldn't explain a whole lot. There's also a manage resources where we can see where the commodities are stored on our ship. So that's actually going to be a bit more of a thing. We're not just going to build war-class ships. We're also going to want to make sure we've got room for transit. Logistics. Logistics isn't the right word, but being able to carry stuff from place to place. Upper right also has our credits and our fame. We can actually move around some of the windows, which is nice. Let's go ahead and do the first mission together, though. And these are all randomized. So, that being said, if you load up and start a fresh game, it's not going to look the same. It's going to be similar, but it's not going to be exactly the same. As always, our favorite time controls here at the top. This goes all the way up to 4x and can be lowered all the way to quarter time, which if you like the scenes like I do, like I play Stellaris on super slow speed when it's battle time, can really enjoy it. So, our first enemy is somewhere in this area. We're just going to move to the middle. And it's very straightforward. It's just right-click to move your ship. There are very, very neat ways to do tactical level orders for your ship. Rotating the ship to face a certain orientation, moving. There's also, when we find an enemy, we can position ourselves in a better position. Oh, there's our enemy. So I'm going to right-click on him just to say, move to that target. The line is in red, meaning it's an enemy. And what is happening is in the middle here. So we're just going for observance. We're just trying to see what's what. So our ship is changing direction very neatly. And as we get a little closer, I'm just going to pause the game so we can talk about some of the tactics. And boom, enemies in sight. Now, we're just going to touch the surface. I'd like to do like a full playthrough of this, but I want to take like 15-20 minutes, give you a really good idea what you're getting into. That's kind of the plan. So, we have the ship targeted. If I want, I can right-click on anything in particular to say, concentrate fire. Now, this is a standard cannon. This seems to be the only offensive weapon on this ship. I want that gone. So all of our lasers are going to focus fire on this as much as they possibly can. Now, where I bring in the tactics part is because this ship only has a weapon on the front, if we can swing around it and they can't hit us, all the better. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to hold my right mouse button on the ship and I'm going to pull back. Now, you can see a couple of things here. First of all is the really, really big red half circle. That's the range of our weapons. The little arc over here on the right that I'm drawing is where our ship ought to move. So I kind of want to maximize our range and minimize how much they can hit us. So moving our ship like this, or what have you, is going to give us a bit of a better position because I don't want it to stare us right in the front. Now I'm just going to do that. Now what I'm hoping is our ship is going to point at that guy, but also shimmy a bit. Now we do have some side thrusters which are going to help with maneuverability. So let's go ahead and just unpause and see what happens. We move into range, and now we're still moving and rotating. Yep. That's looking good. Let's check out what's going on over here if I zoom in real good. Half speed. Oh, we're hitting them. We're hitting them direct. And let's take a pause and go back to our ship. There's a lot of camera controls with this game, which really help with the maneuvering. And I have to be honest, I've been playing a lot of real-time strategy games where I'm bouncing around the battlefield. So it's a little bit for me to still get my head wrapped around. But I've warped back to our ship. Shields are holding up well, and I can see them right here in this mini screen. Okay, let's pause again. Weapons are down. We win by disabling the enemy ship. Disabling could mean just blowing them to Kingdom Come, or killing the crew, as rude as that sounds. But let's go ahead and take a look on them and see what we can get. Their reactor core is here. Blowing that up will cause the ship to completely collapse. Oh, they have a small hyperdrive. Look at that. A storage bay is here, and the cockpit is here. Removing the cockpit would also help. It's actually more advantageous, in my opinion, to take out the cockpit rather than the core. The core is volatile and will explode. So right now we've got them locked. We're giving chase. Again, have this at half speed so we can enjoy all the cinematic goodness. Poof, there went that. Now, with the old game, as I mentioned, we would just get cash bounty and that's it. We're going to move up to this ship and we're going to salvage it. Oh, it looks like the engines are still very much running. Plonk. Okay, let's rotate so we're facing the guy. Oh, I'm just going to hold right mouse and we can change our orientation very easily like so. Get up nice and close to it. Now, in order to get any money out of the combat itself, we're going to start salvage operations. I just hit the little pickaxe, and I'm going to select everything I want discombobulated. And what's going to happen is, our people are going to leave our ship via an airlock and go manually disassemble the ship for parts. Now, these parts are going to be stored in our storage bay, and then we can go ahead and sell those or use them for whatever we want. So I'm just going to speed things up a little bit here. Go. And let's do manage resources. You can see everyone's dropping off. Oh, we got some Hyperium. Nice. Hyperium is required for jumps. Audio is still just a little loud. Down, my dude. Cool. I'll mess with that also, maybe, when I do the rendering, the mastering, or whatever. But we'll take the ship apart. So, like I said, we'll have all the good stuff. So we also fulfilled our contract. So contracts are a nice way to kind of steer you down a path, get you a little bit of money. That way, if this ship was a complete wash, we'd at least get some pay. But we were able to dismantle it pretty efficiently. Again, not aiming for that core is important. Oh, they had to run back for some more O2. I'm going to turn this up to 4x. It also looks like there's some other bits here, yep. Nicely highlighted. Must be some salvage that just blasted off of the ship. Okay. And in a second here. Okay, very good. I know that we're done because there was a little loadout right here by the Model S, you might have noticed, with a number saying this many people are outside the ship. So we're going to head back to the station. Anytime you're confused on where to go, you can go ahead and just right-click on any of these things, and they will point you to where you need to go. Now, this one's already done, so when I right-clicked, it popped over there. So we're going to come back. It's an easy. Don't slam into one of the defensive platforms, alright? Ooh, you're a fast one. My ships currently now are much bulkier, so they do not move that fast. We're going to hail the station. We're going to come back. We're going to get our payment for our fugitive bounty. And I will receive payment. That was a little bit of credits, a little bit of fame, a little bit of reputation, right? Works out pretty well. Also, I have some items to sell. We picked off some good stuff off this enemy vessel. Hyperium is going to be used for jump travel, for warping to other sectors. I'm not super interested in that right now. I'm going to scrap out a little bit of this steel, a little bit of the coil. What else? We got some enriched uranium. I'm just going to go ahead and sell that too. And let's go ahead and initiate trade. Now, what's going to happen when I unpause, same as with salvaging a ship, we're going to have people load up the stuff and take it to be sold. Now, vice versa, if we were buying commodities, same thing. They would bring the stuff to us. So this got us a little bit of cash as well. Now, we're just scratching the surface, but again, kind of want to keep this on the quick. In addition to the missions that we can do, and the actual go kill a guy kind of a thing, which any Cosmoteer is probably very, very familiar with now, is actual mining operations. So I'm just going to kick this up to 4x. I'm going to wait till this EVA until the number is 0, but right now we still have dudes in transit. That should be the last of it. Very good. Now, let's go ahead and see if we can find an asteroid belt or something we could do some mining in. See, there's a question mark there, question mark there, question mark there. Let's just do a little exploring. Hoping to find an asteroid belt or anywhere we could do some salvage. Oh, look, that was fast. Okay, let's go ahead and pause. We have some copper, we have some Hyperium, we have some all kinds of stuff. Turn down that game speed. Holy cripes. This is where the mining laser really comes into play. But for what we have, I can go ahead and take this pick and highlight, and any mineable resources that are near the outside, or even in like easier parts of the asteroid, same thing will happen. Some dudes will go out with some cutting lasers, they'll mine it up, that'll bring us some copper, that'll get dumped right into storage. Again, we can either sell that immediately for some quick cash, or, as I showed before with some of the upgrades and blueprints we can buy, we can actually turn those into coils, which are used for more advanced parts, more advanced components for the ship. So this right here already takes a ton more content added to the game. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up our storage. There you go, stores real nicely. Everything has to have its own spot, and each spot can occupy 20 of the same item. I do believe that's how that works. Let's head back to the station and do a little bit of ship customization. I've been talking a lot about being able to customize a ship, but we haven't done that very much at all. Let's go ahead and just pause real quick. If you do customizations or repairs outside of a station's zone of control, you have to pay in raw materials. So if I go ahead and turn this into blueprint mode, which is super cool, it allows us to customize the ship at no charge until we finalize the sale. So I'm just going to add some weapons really nilly-nilly like. Well, one of the things is, because we're way out here, we need to make the changes ad hoc, is what I'd like to call it. So we have to pay for the resources specifically required to make the change. That allows us to do some customization while we're out in space, but doesn't really help us a lot when we're just starting the game. So I'm just going to go ahead and shut off blueprint mode, and I'm going to discard the modifications. I didn't really want that anyway. Now, let's go ahead and get back to our view. We're going to head back to the station. I'm going to show you what the difference is if we're near a station. So I'm going to pause the game, crack open this bad boy, and I'm going to put those customizations right back on. Oopsie daisy doozy. There we go. So now I threw a bunch on, and instead of it being costing so much in just raw materials, it also costs in cash. So the cash is using as like a neat middleman, right? It's the same thing with anything. We use cash as a modern society to regulate the transfer of goods and services and products and all that in between different people, right? Certain people do different jobs, and when they want to trade sources, resources, whatever, they can do that with money. It's a nice little middleman to kind of keep things nice and even, right? So, we can do make it so, and that allows us to finalize the change. I still really don't want that change. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of how this game operates on that level. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at one of my saves. I've got a few saves queued up. And we're going to open up test. I believe test is like the first... Let's see, I think this is my second or third reboot when I was starting to get a look into the ships. Oh my gosh, yeah. So this is the same Model S, highly configured, or changed a bunch, I should say. I added more storage because I was trying to do a bit more of the harvesting operations. I was able to afford a really meaty engine room. The engine room allows the other thrusters to operate more efficiently. And now that we're here, there's just two things I want to mention really, really quickly. First of all, when you're adding crew in rooms, make sure every room has access. Now, what do I mean by that? I can add a laser right here, but it has no access to crew or power. I can just keep adding these if I want. And this makes this either incredibly difficult for crew to get to where they need to go for battle stations, or in some cases, I just completely block them off entirely. Certain rooms have different layouts. This quarters, for example, let's come over here. You can see has a door on a particular side. That's also super, super important. There's been 2 or 3 builds I've actually had where I built it like this, and I'm like, yeah, crew quarters, no problem. And it's like, well, how the heck are they going to get out of there? Poof. The second thing to note is in the bottom right, you get a neat little guide on command points, personnel, and power. This line is the recommended allotment for your ship. Wanting to make sure if you've got a lot of energy weapons on your ship, make sure you have enough power. Do you have enough crew? Do you have enough everything to make it work? That's kind of how that flies. So this was my first, I guess, beefy attempt at getting something going on. The same 2 shield arrays, which is nice. I added a few more energy weapons, which is cool. Saves on a lot of cost in terms of munitions and everything. Let's go ahead and open up my next one. This is test 2. Now, to mention, I didn't get very far into the game. I've only had the key for a few days, but I've been very much enjoying how far I've gotten. This was my freighter class. So this is very similar to what I had. And this cleans up very, very nicely. I've got a lot of storage. I can go mining for days. I've got a bigger power core, and I've got a couple of supplemental power capacitors to help with the engines and try to alleviate how much is being drawn from the core itself. Now, I want to show you that because this actually shows my exact example I was talking about corridors and access. They do a very, very good job with this, showing you where the nearest crew and power is to know that if a weapon or a system takes a long time to use or a lot of energy, how long will it take for it to recharge? How soon can we get more power? So if we were to make this any better, add some corridors, add another door, and now let's take another look at that. Much better. The nearest power is 8 meters. So the crew is a little bit far, but the power is much better. One more thing about the crew. The crew system is completely reconfigured. This is actually pretty amazing. Before, you just had crew, and I think they just did anything they could as close as they could. Now there are roles. You can create roles for certain crew members to do certain tasks. Red shirt, which makes me laugh a bunch. I'm a bit of a Star Trek fan. Red shirts are your first crew, first role. They'll do anything at whatever necessary, whatever's going on. There's also an order mode, so you can say specific members of a certain bunk should go to a certain place. There's also a role roster and roster roles. Very hard to say. We can edit an individual role with job priorities. So we can say our red team does lasers and shields. And we have another crew that just does engines. Or we can set this up any way we want, even with specific items themselves. So there's a lot of good stuff there. Let's go ahead and crack open up our third and final build. This is the one I was last using. And I think it has a lot of the same structure as the second ship and a bit of tweaking. I'm really happy with a lot of stuff, with everything. I've actually, like I said, I've reloaded 2 or 3 times. Oh, right. So this is actually a ship graveyard I came across. Now let's take a look at our ship real quick. This is actually very similar to what we had in the last ship. I added disruptors for the extra energy boom. And instead of getting into all the weaponry minutia, which I don't really want to get into a ton of depth about, another recommendation I would have is to make sure that you vary your weapon types. Energy weapons, the lasers specifically, are great against dealing damage. But the disruptors are really good at, you guessed it, disrupting systems. So it's actually really cool to have a little mix and match of stuff just to make sure you vary your damage. Just like any role-playing game or anything, making sure you can deal different types of elemental damage or similar, something like that. That's kind of how I like to think of it. Makes you a more well-rounded character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and harvest as much of this as I can. We're going to load up our fill. And then what we're going to do is we're going to head back, we're going to sell it, I'm going to give my final thoughts, and that's really going to be it for this first look into Cosmoteer. I know I said I wanted it like 15 minutes, we're almost at a half hour, holy crap. I kind of feel it's a really good sign for a video game. It's like, this is something I really want to share, and I want to share it a lot. And this is another thing that I really enjoyed, seeing other ships that are neutral, or allied, or whatever, allied, and just seeing like a bit of an environment. Oh, I didn't even talk about the sectors. It's broken down by each as its own difficulty level, as we were familiar with the old game, but also now faction control. So depending on who we want to work with as we're playing our game, we might be friendly or not to other factions. This requires a hyperdrive and then Hyperium to do a jump. And then what that's going to greet us is a whole nother thing like this. A whole nother complete ecosystem that's got its own thing going on. It's actually pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how much of this, just the sheer scale of it, has come into play. Aside from that, realistically, I don't really have much else to say other than my recommendation. Go check out this game. There's a demo right now available on Steam. You can go ahead and pick it up and see what you think, see what you like about it. If this is a game that's right up your alley, yeah, I mean, I think this is a game that a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, I've already sent them to the demo, and I'm like, you've got to check this out. It's worth your time. Give it some effort. Give it a go. If you don't like how your ship is starting, give it another try. It's absolutely fine. And honestly, when I played the game originally, it took me a little bit of time to get used to it. It really did. I was losing constantly. But that was me sticking with my ideas on how a ship ought to be, and not what the game is looking for me to experiment with and try new stuff. So we're going to have a nice little piggy bank here. And this save is about, I'd say, 3 hours in to get this kind of a Freightliner going on. I really wanted a cargo ship. So how are we doing on storage? We're looking very good. We're getting a lot of steel. Some processors, that's good. Those are worth a lot of coin. Is that tri-steel? Oh, awesome. Plenty of Hyperium. Some enriched uranium. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. We got everything? Cool. Like I said, this is a ship graveyard I just came into and I saved it. Now I'm like, saved my game and I'm like, yeah, we're going to come back to this. We're going to definitely, that's going to be a highlight right there. And it's such a small part of the map and the environment as a whole. I don't know. I'm almost stupefied and enjoying it and everything. Everything's so cool. So we're going to just move over here. This ship is quite a bit heavier. It's not nearly as snappy as our old guy. So, or our smaller ship that we started with. But I really wanted a freighter to really kick it off. So we'll go ahead and do our hailing. Buddy, have I got some stuff for you? Let's sell off some of that. Let's sell just a bunch of the steel. Yeah. Oh, do you not want more steel? I have a ton of steel left over. Oh, are you out of money? Is that what the deal is? Maybe there's only so much stuff that they'll actually buy. But let's go ahead and initiate the trade. Not all the requested resources can be transferred. It's usually because there are no airlocks. Oh, right. I'll have to change that real quick, like. No airlocks. No airlocks. There's an airlock right there. Let's add another airlock or two. So what I'm doing is I'm going to chuck her into blueprint mode. This is actually a really good explanation and showing how I would do this in real time. Airlock hatch. I'm just going to head and boop right there. Do I need another one? I don't think I need another one. Let's make it so. And I already had all the steel and coils already on the ship. So let's go ahead and resume. There we go. We got some guys going. There we are. Okay. Yep, the station's helping out. Let's move up a little closer. There we go. And the money doth flow. Now, the beginning part of the game was a little tight on cash. Absolutely. So don't be discouraged about it. It's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort to get your space legs. Your space legs, I'd say. So, while this is all transferring off, we're sitting at a nice 50K. And I'm looking forward to building the rest of my ship and everything else. If you got some ship designs you'd like me to build or anything, feel free to chuck them in the comments below. I'm excited to start my space adventure, and I hope you are too. So thanks again, and I hope to catch you next time. Hey there, guys, gals, fans, and pals. Thanks for checking out my video. I also want to take a moment to thank all my supporters and donators, and if you'd like to join up with me and game with my crew, all the information to get connected is in the description below. Thanks again, and I hope to catch you next time.